The story unfolds by opening on an unexpected deep space detection tied to 3I Atlas, then rewinds to explain how the object was first noticed, how data anomalies emerged, and why scientists initially dismissed them. It escalates through mounting confirmations from multiple observatories, introduces a second massive presence emerging from deeper space, and explores its strange behavior and apparent alignment with 3I. The narrative then shifts into global reactions, internal debates within the scientific community, suppressed findings, and unsettling implications about intent, intelligence, and cosmic surveillance. The final movement reflects on humanity's psychological reckoning, the fragility of certainty, and the haunting realization that the universe may be far more aware of us than we ever imagined. Something massive appeared without warning. Not as a flash or explosion, but as a distortion in data so subtle that it almost slipped through unnoticed, buried beneath routine celestial noise that astronomers process every night. It emerged from a region of deep space so dark and cold that most surveys treat it as background emptiness, a place where nothing of consequence is supposed to move, let alone announce itself. The first sign came as a timing discrepancy in the tracking of 3IAT, the interstellar object already puzzling scientists with its unusual trajectory and non-gravitational acceleration. At first, the deviation was blamed on calibration drift, a minor software hiccup, or perhaps solar radiation pressure miscalculations that had not yet been fully corrected. But when independent systems in different hemispheres recorded the same discrepancy, the quiet assumption of error began to feel less convincing. 3I Atlas was no longer behaving like a lone traveler, and the math hinted that something else was influencing its path from far beyond the edge of the solar system. Deep space radar arrays were tasked with a closer look, sweeping the darkness with long integrations that pushed instruments to their operational limits. What came back was not an image, but a mass estimate inferred from gravitational effects. And that estimate was uncomfortably large. Too large to be a comet, too massive to be a rogue asteroid, and far too coherent to be dismissed as a statistical artifact. As analysts refined their models, a second object began to take shape in the equations, not visible in reflected light, but undeniable in its influence. It appeared to be moving on a vector that intersected the path of 3IATL with unsettling precision, as if the encounter were planned long before our telescopes ever existed. The object's velocity suggested an origin far outside our galactic neighborhood from a depth of space rarely associated with structured motion. Unlike typical interstellar visitors, this one showed no signs of tumbling chaos or random drift. Its course was steady, deliberate, and smooth. Whispers spread through research teams, cautious phrases replacing bold claims. Yet, the tension in every meeting room grew heavier by the hour. When infrared data finally hinted at a faint thermal signature, the room fell silent because the heat profile made no natural sense. It was too uniform, too controlled, lacking the gradients expected from a body warmed by stars or radioactive decay. Someone suggested a dust-shrouded brown dwarf, but the mass didn't align, and the luminosity was all wrong. Another proposed an ancient stellar remnant. Yet its motion contradicted everything known about such objects wandering alone. As data stacked up, the uncomfortable word targeting began appearing in internal notes, never spoken aloud, but impossible to ignore. The massive object was adjusting its course, not toward Earth, but toward 3IAT itself, matching changes with eerie responsiveness. Every time 3IATLA altered its trajectory slightly, the distant mass compensated, maintaining a constant relational geometry. This was not passive gravity. It looked like pursuit, or at the very least, coordination. Requests for additional observation time flooded observatories worldwide. Some approved instantly, others quietly delayed without explanation. Behind closed doors, discussions turned philosophical as much as scientific, touching on intent, agency, and the limits of accepted theory. Publicly, officials reassured that nothing unusual was occurring, that interstellar dynamics are complex and often misunderstood. Privately, simulations ran non-stop, each one ending with the same conclusion that no one wanted to put in writing. The object was massive enough to be detected if it wanted to be, yet it remained cloaked, as though aware of how to stay hidden. Its lack of visible outgassing, flaring, or debris suggested a structure not a natural aggregate of rock and ice. One senior astrophysicist resigned abruptly, citing personal reasons, though colleagues knew he had argued fiercely against releasing any preliminary findings. Rumors leaked anyway, spreading through academic circles and then into the wider public in fragmented, half-understood forms. Online forums lit up with speculation, some dismissing the idea as sensationalism, others sensing that something fundamental was shifting. As weeks passed, the object drew closer to 3I-ATL. Their paths weaving a silent dance across the star charts. No radio emissions were detected, no laser flashes, nothing that could be interpreted as communication. And yet, the precision of the interaction felt communicative in itself, like a language written in gravity and time. Theories multiplied from exotic dark matter constructs to relics of pre-galactic civilizations drifting between stars. A few voices dared to suggest that 3I-AT might not be the anomaly, but the bait. That idea was quickly buried under layers of cautious wording and peer review delays. But it lingered in the minds of those who had seen the raw data. As the massive object crossed a threshold distance, subtle perturbations reached the outer planets. Barely measurable but undeniably present. Space agencies coordinated in unprecedented ways, sharing classified telemetry that would normally never leave secure servers. The realization settled in that humanity was not observing a random event, but witnessing an interaction that had begun long before we noticed. Historical data was reanalyzed and faint hints emerged that similar disturbances may have occurred centuries ago, unrecognized by less precise instruments. If true, this would mean such encounters are not unique, merely rare and fleeting, passing beneath the awareness of young civilizations. The object's mass estimate was revised upward again, pushing it into a category that defied easy classification. It was not a star, not a planet, and not a cloud, but something in between, compact and controlled. As tension grew, cultural reactions mirrored scientific unease with art, literature, and media reflecting a collective sense of being watched. Religious leaders offered interpretations ranging from cosmic indifference to purposeful design, each grappling with the same unknown. Meanwhile, 3I Atlas began to exhibit changes of its own, shedding material in patterns that looked almost symmetrical. This shedding did not slow it down. Instead, it altered its spin and orientation as if responding to an external signal. The massive object adjusted again, maintaining its relative position, never colliding, never retreating. At a certain point, analysts realized that Earth lay outside the immediate interaction, not ignored, but irrelevant. That insight was both comforting and terrifying, suggesting that the universe hosts dramas in which humanity is merely an observer. Still, the possibility remained that observation itself was part of the equation. That awareness might matter in ways not yet understood. As the objects drew closer together, data streams became erratic. Instruments overwhelmed by gravitational complexity. Some readings simply vanished, overwritten by noise that could not be filtered out. When the two finally reached their closest approach, there was no explosion, no flash, no visible exchange. Instead, 3I-ATLS altered its trajectory sharply as though released from an invisible constraint. The massive object slowed, its course bending away, retreating back toward the dark from which it came. In the aftermath, scientists pored over terabytes of data, searching for meaning in what had not happened. No material transfer was confirmed, no energy spike recorded, yet the gravitational signatures told a story of interaction. It was as if a message had been delivered without words, an instruction given and received. Official statements framed the event as a rare but natural interstellar encounter, emphasizing the absence of danger. Few believed that explanation fully, but it was accepted enough to quiet public anxiety. In private reflections, many researchers admitted that the universe felt different now, less silent, less empty. The encounter forced a re-evaluation of assumptions about isolation and randomness on a cosmic scale. If such massive coordinated phenomena exist, then intelligence or structure may be woven deeper into the fabric of space than previously imagined. 3I Atlas continued on its new path, no longer heading where predictions once placed it. The massive object faded back into undetectable darkness, leaving only equations and unease behind. Years from now, textbooks may mention this event as a footnote, stripped of its mystery and fear. But for those who watched it unfold in real time, the memory remains vivid and unresolved. They know that something massive appeared from deep space, that it targeted 3i-ATL with purpose, and that it left without explanation. And in the quiet moments between discoveries, they wonder if this was a singular event or merely the first time humanity noticed the universe paying attention. The unanswered questions did not fade with time. Instead, they deepened, settling into the scientific community like a low, persistent hum that could never quite be ignored. Please like and subscribe channel.